He's an influential Canadian billionaire, businessman, and philanthropist, Michael Lee Chin.
He hasn't granted a television interview in several years, but tonight that changes. He'll be joining CP24 tonight, and right now we're joined by anchors Reshmi Nair and Nick Dixon. Nick, remind us of Michael Lee Chin's story.
Well, it's an impressive story indeed, Michelle. This is a self-made billionaire, someone who he's a Jamaican Canadian. He's 70 years old now, but he's made his money through investing, through being very focused on, perhaps in some cases, following what others have done successfully, and he's followed that trail. He was a sort of an acolyte of Warren Buffett back in the day. Now he's got his Portland Holdings company, where he is now his net worth is estimated at $1.6 billion. So he's got a lot of financial advice, but he's also quite a philanthropist too, giving away millions of dollars to causes that are close to his heart. And again, like you mentioned, he hasn't spoken in about 2 years on television. So in this Canadian TV exclusive, we're going to get a real chance to spend quite a bit of time with Michael Lee Chin this evening.
Reshmi, you've got me curious. What's on the agenda? What are you going to be talking to him about?
Yeah, we're going to pick his brain on everything, Nathan. How often do you get a billionaire on air with you? We're going to hear what the year was like for him during this pandemic. We're going to look back on the year that was, but also look ahead to the year coming up. And he's going to give us some financial advice and some investment ideas, things that can help us spark the economy again, either in your household or for your business. We'll wait and see what kind of advice he has for us.
All right, thank you, Reshmi and Nick. CP24 tonight airs immediately following CTV News at 6, right after this show. Be sure to watch.
We're approaching the anniversary of the first lockdowns across Canada, a milestone in the battle against COVID-19, and it's an opportunity to look back and to look ahead, because there could be new investment opportunities that could help individual Canadians in their financial recovery. So
in tonight's Talkers, we have a Canadian TV exclusive. Michael Lee Chin, one of 13 black billionaires globally and the founder and chairman of Portland Holdings, Inc. He joins us to talk about the unprecedented year we've just experienced and his next big idea when it comes to investing. So thanks for joining us. And before we begin, Michael, I should, of course, mention I worked for you at AIC about 20 years ago, so it's nice to chat with you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, Nick. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, and so are we. So let's talk about the last year before we really get underway. It's been tumultuous. Political turmoil, pandemic, lockdowns, thousands of businesses closed, people have lost jobs. What's your take been on the last year, and what's it been like for you personally?
Well, firstly, we all had to adjust. We had to, the famous word now is pivot. Mm-hmm. So we all had to pivot. We're all in a very difficult situation. It's been tough. And, you know, when I go through crises, I remember the Chinese definition of the word crisis, which is like an equation. Crisis equals danger plus opportunity. So my focus is singular. I have to make sure we come out of this stronger than we went into this pandemic. That's my singular focus. So how can we be stronger than when we went in? So in terms of business, we have not changed our strategy, because our strategy has been based on long-term planning. And when you're in the midst of a hurricane, it's very easy to get buffeted and you're away from your long-term planning. So the focus has to be on stay in your lane and stay with your long-term plans. And that's all we have been doing.
Okay, so let's talk about the fact, you're a self-made billionaire, you're an investor, as we know, and you're always looking for that next big trend. And now you think you've found it. So what is it, and how do you think people will be able to take advantage of what you've sort of come across and learned about?
Well, I'm not very athletic, so I don't want to I can't jump over 10-foot hurdles, but I can walk over 1-foot hurdles. So what I've always done is try to identify a strong long-term growth sector, industry, and just park my canoe on it. So in 1983, I was 32 years old, and I'm a typical baby boomer, right in the center. And as we know, baby boomers are the cohort of who were born between 1964 and 1946 and 1964. So I'm smack dead in the middle. 1951 was when I was born. So in 83, I was 32 years old. And at 32 years old, I asked myself, because I'm a part of this, the largest cohort of the population, the baby boomers, consisting of about 30% of the population. Whatever the baby boomers do will affect the economy. So I thought, what do 32-year-old families do? Well, they consume. They're buying a home, they're buying a car, etc., etc., etc. So we had, at that point in time, 1983, the most significant percentage of the population, in North American population, engaged in consumption. So we're going through a consumption boom. So I thought, okay, given what Wayne Gretzky said, if you want to be successful, go where the puck is going. So in the next 8 years, Mike, by 1990, what will the baby boomers be doing? Well, they'll be anxious about saving and investing, anxious about retiring. So I thought, how do I participate in that coming wave? Well, I could buy a bank or shares in a bank. I didn't own a bank then. I could buy shares in an insurance company. I didn't own an insurance company then. Or I could go for the bullseye, which is to buy asset management businesses, which I did in '83 in anticipation of the saving and investing wave. And I built an entire business based on that. Now, so today I'm 70. So the question is, what make 70-year-old people anxious? Well, they want to live long. So there's a healthcare boom that we're in the early innings of. And that boom will last for a while, driven by the demographics of our population, the baby boomers. So what's the best way to participate in this trend? Well, the best way, we could buy a nursing home or shares in a nursing home business or a pharmaceutical business, or unfortunately, within this major trend, there's a sub-trend, which is cancer. Cancer will be in a stronger long-term growth boom. So oncology will be a boom area.
Michael,
now, when you think of...
Sorry, if I could jump in here. When you think about a 30-something-year-old now, during this pandemic, what would you suggest? I'm thinking about, oversaturation with apps or some sort of social media idea. Do you ever worry about oversaturation when you're coming up with an investment idea?
No, well, firstly, when we come up with an investment, most people spend too much time looking at the company itself. I'm suggesting that we should spend a lot more time looking at the the characteristics of the industry and select an industry with long-term characteristics. Then you select a company to ride that wave. So whether you're 30 or 50, I have identified the third wave, which is driven by healthcare, which is the healthcare boom. And within that, there will be oncology. But when you think about oncology, there are two modalities. Number one, chemotherapy, which poisons your body. Number two, external beam radiation, which fries your body. Both are blunt instruments. So the next wave of treating cancer is called PRRT, which is peptide receptor radionuclide therapy, which is treating cancer at the cell level. In other words, zapping only the cancerous cells and leaving neighboring healthy cells alone. That will be the next treatment that will be disrupting external beam radiation and chemotherapy. So that is the next big wave that we are focusing on.
Okay, and we, of course, have much more to come with Michael Lee Chin in this Canadian TV exclusive here on CP24 tonight. After the break, we'll get into more about what he's talking about and also about being a black business leader and billionaire. That's coming up after this.
We're back live with the founder and chairman of Portland Holdings, Inc., Michael Lee Chin, in this Canadian TV exclusive. And we have been talking about healthcare reform, as that is something that boomers are going to be involved in, one of the largest generations, and Michael Lee Chin investing in that. I wanted to ask you as well, Michael, if healthcare reform is something that could be an opportunity, how does that apply to this pandemic, or at least coming out of COVID-19?
Well, again, in terms of its application to the pandemic, that's not my focus. My focus is, again, on the long term. What's going to be the case? Where will we be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? We will alight from the pandemic, and there'll be life after this valley. So in terms of investing, again, I go back to identify a long-term trend, which I have, and just build and just focus on it and ride that wave.
In your career, have you forecast something that didn't turn out? Did you predict something 5 years down the road that didn't turn out?
Well, in my career, you see, my career is a function of simply identifying how wealth is created in the real world. So I identified a framework, which basically, if you think about any wealthy person in the world, they do 5 things. Number 1, they own a few high-quality businesses. Number 2, they really make sure they understand them. Number 3, they make sure that there's strong long-term growth industries. Fourthly, they use other people's money prudently. And fifthly, their attitude is simply, I'm going to hold these businesses for as long as they remain great. Now, that's the framework as to how wealth is created in the real world. Now, I have made mistakes, and when my mistakes has been a function of me morphing away from my framework. So I get zapped every time I leave my framework. So I focus, I stay in my lane and stick to principles.
So when you see something in the last couple of weeks, like the sort of bizarre activity around the GameStop shares and how its Redditors seem to manipulate it, almost seem the market, or the situation with Bitcoin and Tesla getting into the Bitcoin game now, how do you keep that focus when people are making tons of money, it seems, in a short-term range? How do you stay focused and disciplined on your belief system?
It's outside, the good thing about when you have a framework, when you have principles, when you have a value system, it instructs you absolutely as to what you should be doing. And so you know what is for you. And you also, at the same time, know what you should not be doing. So when I just superimpose what's happening against the 5 laws I just mentioned. Is it a business? Is it a high quality business? Number 1, and I just go through mechanically. Number 2, do I understand it? Number 3, is it in a strong long-term growth industry? And if I cannot make 5 ticks, I'm not in. So I stay in my lane, my principles. I stick to my principles.
It's pretty remarkable discipline. I want to switch gears now, Michael, and talk to you about being a Black Canadian business leader, a global business leader, one of only 13 Black billionaires on Forbes' list. What is that like? What does that mean, when you think of where you've come from and perhaps some of the challenges you've had to overcome?
Well, I never focus on. I focus on being a business person, because there's no pass. I don't get a pass by being a Black business person. I still have to make sure that I every day worry about how am I making sure my businesses are relevant. As a professional, these 3 principles are also apropos. Number 1, we have to, as a professional or as business people, we have to think every day, am I being relevant? Am I differentiating myself in the marketplace? Secondly, I focus on how am I making sure that my behavior today is accreting to a better reputation tomorrow. I'm constantly in reputation building mode. And thirdly, I focus on making sure that my behavior is relevant to customers. I'm solving customers' biggest issues.
Okay, we've got about a minute and a half left, Michael. I want to ask you, the Canadian economy posted its worst showing on record last year. What's the good news that you can give average investors today looking ahead What do you say to them who say, we've seen a terrible year, we've seen job losses, business closed? Do you have some good news? Is there a silver lining?
Well, there is a silver lining. You know, we all suffer from recency bias. If it's been bad yesterday, we extrapolate into the infinite future, thinking it will be bad forever. But unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. If it's been bad, if we've the night is darkest just before dawn. So what would I suggest? I would suggest that Canadian investors focus on long-term trends, buy high-quality businesses that are well-run by people who have skin in the game. So you know you're co-investing with people with skin in the game.
All right, exclusive details and insights from the one and only Michael Leachin. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you
very much.
We appreciate it.